Talk less.
What?
Smile more. Don't let them know what you're against or what you're for.
You can't be serious.
Right, well, I'm Cameron Hawkins, as you just said.
Apologies.
I'm doing a Bachelor of Arts. I'm in first year. Technically, like, sort of fifth, but not really. And I have no political affiliation.
What degree did you do before?
Science.
Oh, cool.
I did that for 4 years.
How would you describe your political leaning if you don't have necessarily like a factional affiliation?
I'd call it quite left. Like, if I say the election was right now, I'd vote Greens.
Okay, cool.
Cool. So do you want to just tell us sort of generally why you're running for board, but can't say that it's because you love the union?
Okay. Well, I've basically got this wealth of like CNS experience that I've just it's kind of just piled up over the past, I don't know, 3-4 years, and you know, I like to think that with all this experience in, you know, doing, like, working around the union, I feel like I've got, you know, what it takes to run the union effectively into bigger and better things.
Cool. So on that, you talked about having experience. What kind of experience with the union have you had?
Alright, so I'd say my experience is mainly on clubs and societies, through all kinds of positions, pres, vice pres, treasurer, secretary, all the way down to general exec. So I've done a bit of everything.
In your experience with clubs and societies, what would you say is the biggest issue facing clubs and societies at the moment?
I know something that, you know, catches people off guard all the time is organising meetings, like general meetings, annual general meetings, and the wording in particular with the time frame before which you have to organise the meeting. You know, it says, I think it's 14 clear days, but then some people say, oh, I'm going to have my meeting on this day, but they don't realise that they need to have organised the meeting that day 15 or 16 days in advance, and then that just throws them off entirely. Then they have to rebook rooms, and it's just a whole bunch of, you know, bureaucratic gymnastics that's not fun for CNS nor the executives.
So, under your policies, is that where your CNS conferences would come in, and if so, how would they help?
Well, look, I was at the CNS conference. It was sort of a discussion last week regarding the regulation changes that were set about January, February this year. And I believe that came up at some stage. So yeah, I would definitely want to look further into that and see other club executives' opinions on the matter and see where we can improve upon it.
Cool.
Your SRC campaign last year appeared to be primarily sort of a bit of a counter-establishment statement. How seriously are you taking this run for Union Board?
Oh, this is completely serious. Like, I mean, there'll probably be some memes and stuff here and there, but you know, there will be serious policies for the most part.
Mm-hmm. And why do you see this office as something more deserving of being taken seriously?
I wouldn't put it like that. I'd say last time, like for SRC, it was just a bit of fun for me, and I don't really know. Like, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on the ins and outs of the SRC. I'm more well versed in the USU aspects of student life as opposed to SRC.
Okay, sure.
But you are an SRC councillor.
Yeah, I am. I wouldn't say that I'm still particularly well versed in what goes on there, though.
Okay. Do you think the fact that maybe you haven't committed to fully informing yourself about that role could be problematic for voters out there seeing your commitment to a potential board directorship?
I don't think so.
Why?
Because I believe if I you can put your mind to anything, you can achieve this, and I believe that if I do put my mind to these things, I can achieve them.
Mm-hmm. But you've just chosen not to achieve a fuller understanding of how the SLC works. Because I suppose, like, from a voter perspective, like from the perspective of someone being accosted while they're walking down Eastern Avenue,
Yeah.
I mean, in both the USU election and the SLC election, you vote for a student representative. I suppose the question is, why should they take you seriously now, as opposed to last September?
I'd like to say I'd like to think I've matured a little bit since November and prior to that. But also this time I've got actual policies that are serious and not things like abolishing gravity from campus.
Fair. A lot of your policies seem to focus on making existing services better. I suppose it's sort of hard for a voter reading your policy statement to exactly understand what that will entail. So, do you have any suggestions of how the union can achieve better parties or better student spaces? Like, what would be some practical ways in which that, like, let's just take better parties for example. Like, better parties is one of your policies. What is a better party to Cameron Hawkins?
All right, so based on the experience that I've had with parties, largely at Manning, what makes a good party is that it's well marketed. That's at least to some capacity you have consultation with the student body, because they're the ones who will be attending said party. And I mean, there was something else I was going to bring up, but it's not particularly useful for the party at the time. It's more useful for post-party and then for future parties. So it's sort of like a review system, where, or like a feedback sheet where, people can say, oh, this party was pretty great, but, these things were not really up to scratch, and then we can look at that and see, okay, we need to improve here, and here, and then take that on board and actually, apply this feedback and knowledge to future parties to make them better.
There have been candidates almost every election that have campaigned on the basis of having better parties. Is there anything that sets you apart from that trend, or is your main policy just deferring to students' views rather than having your own new conception of what parties should look like?
Look, I definitely believe that since, the constituents of that party will be the students attending it, a lot of them will be voting in this election. I feel like, since, it's the union that decides the theme, and all these other logistical logistical things of the party, it sort of makes sense that the students have at least a bit of a say in what goes on there with all the planning.
Yeah, sure. Another policy you're running on is an access reward system. Do you want to explain how you would expand the access program?
All right. So what I was thinking is, you know how you get a coffee, you hand over your access card and they scan it, and every now and then they say, oh, you've got a free coffee on here. Oh, sweet, I have a free coffee. I didn't know that. And then you go to any other coffee place, they've got a little card that they stamp or they hole punch. On these little cards, you can see how many coffees you've bought and how many until your next free one. On the access card, you can't really see that because it's a little piece of plastic. What I would want to implement is a sort of, I'd say, probably more of an online system where you can log in with your access card details and things, and on that you've got like a profile, and it shows you all these other things, like you have a free coffee coming up, or you have 3 coffees and you can use them. Whereas before you wouldn't have even known about them.
So your better access system is essentially an online portal. That would be your...
Yes.
Today, actually, because these interviews are being recorded at the start of your campaign, the USU announced they would not be deregistering the Evangelical Union and would actually be implementing an exception for faith-based societies in terms of their membership. If you were on the student board, would you have voted for that policy? Do you believe that the EU should not have faced deregistration?
Well, look, what I see in this situation is it's more that this kind of, it's a symbolic act in this, the way I see it, that it's kind of just opened this little can of worms, set sort of a precedent for other clubs, say a political club, to say only members who have signed a declaration form to say the glorious invisible hand of the free market or something, can go for an executive position. It's sort of like that. I mean, I don't know many people who would, if they say they had a liberal membership, would want to try and run for / even stack out, like, say a Greens meeting or something. It just...
So do you think the concerns that the EU have been raising the CNS committee for ages, that people might try to undermine their society, you just don't think they're valid concerns, that no atheist would try to stack an EU exec election or similar?
I sort of feel if they would they really have the support for it either way?
So, Cam, do you think that the board should be able to discuss certain issues, or maybe like executive salaries, in camera?
On camera, I believe that it would, for the sake of accountability and transparency, it seems like a good idea.
So, just for clarification, in camera is the term used when board discussions are private, so it doesn't allow journalists or
in
outside
camera.
parties. Yeah.
So like...
It means in a chamber, which is
Right,
sort
so
of
that is the complete
counterintuitive
opposite.
for on camera.
I mean,
really.
no, sort of similar, with or without, basically, other outside parties being able to listen in.
So, for example, at a USU board meeting, when Honi's there live tweeting, they can take proceedings in camera and whoever from Honi's there live tweeting, and everyone else who's there just as a spectator, just as an access card holder, has to leave the room.
Well, to be honest, I'm all for transparency and stuff. So I feel like, you know, it would set, you know, good example to have these discussions, you know, in the presence of, you know, the constituents whose you know, part of their SAF money is going towards this union, which the board that controls. So I feel like, you know, it's only fair.
So even things like staff salaries, the staff who are in the CNS office and the publications office, they should all be discussed publicly and able to be tweeted.
It's like the CEO, for example.
Yeah.
Yes.
As a director of a company, you'll be charged with a number of fiduciary duties. Would you breach your fiduciary duties if it was in the interests of students?
If I believe that the issue was serious enough, I would definitely consider it.
What would be the sort of issue where you would do something which was a breach of your fiduciary duties?
I'm sure we all remember, you know, a couple of years back with the whole Tom Rowie incident. I'd say a situation of, you know, a similar magnitude to that.
Say you weren't running in this election, but knowing the other candidates who are, who would you rank 1 to 3 on the ballot and why?
I'd say because the top 3, because I feel I would identify most closely with them on the basis of like politics and just where we lean on that spectrum. I'd say in order, Grace, Sam, and Courtney.
Okay, cool. Any particular policies or anything that you feel is similar between you and those people, or just more a similar political leaning?
I'd say more similar political leaning.
So on sort of that metric of political similarity, will that be reflected in your preferences?
Yes.
And who would you preference, or in this hypothetical situation, vote for last? Who would be your number 8 in this hypothetical?
Let's say, you know, on the basis that our politics are vastly different from one another, I'd say Dom.
Cool. So to clarify, when the time comes around where preference deals are happening, it's likely that you would be preferencing Grace, Sam, and Courtney?
Yeah.
Okay.
So who do you think has been the most effective board member who was elected last year?
Most effective last year. It's a tough one. I'd say Mike.
And what has Michael Reese done that you think has made him the most effective board member?
got to say, at least with his election to board, since he was non-factional, it kind of just shook up the whole, the whole factional, I suppose, strongholds that, the USU elections seem to be governed by. I was just hoping I could aspire to that at some stage in this election.
Okay, cool. So, I suppose by that rationale, would you be averse to any sort of factional dealings, either in your preferences now, or if you were to run for an exec position? Like, are you opposed to factions full stop on campus, or because they're quite hard to avoid?
I know they're very hard to avoid, and I'll concede at some stages, that they do have to be dealt with. I don't see myself running for an executive position at least this year. Come next year, I'd consider running, and then at that stage, I'd have to put some serious thought into how I would go about acquiring the number of votes necessary for a position.
Talk less,
What?
smile more. Ha! Don't let them know what you're against or what you're for.